Good evening. We will call our October 13th planning meeting to order.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'll call the roll. Shane Banks,
Present.
Mariah Bishop, Ralph Carson,
Present.
Philip Jefferson,
Here.
Jihan Hodges,
Here.
Ben Mills,
Here.
Michael Boylan.
Here.
That's 6 members present.
Thank you so much. This is our time for our invocation. I will provide that for us. We thank you for this day, this time to be present, to do the work of Town of Garner, to represent our residents, and to do the good work for the town. We ask that we have a time to listen, be aware and present for the work that is good for us, helping to grow the town and be mindful of all the needs of our residents. We thank you in these things. We are here this evening. We ask for your presence of patience and understanding as we go forth for our meeting this evening. Thank you. We are in the adoption of our agenda. Are there any items that need to be adjusted on our agenda this evening? If there are none, is there a motion to adopt our agenda as written? Mr. Carson?
I'll second.
And a second by Mr. Boylan.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt the agenda. I'll call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jihan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Voyland.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes. The agenda is adopted.
Thank you so much. Our meeting minutes are in front of you as well. If you've had a chance to review those, if there's anything that needs to be revised, this is our time. If there is none, is there a motion to approve our meeting minutes from September 8th?
I'll move that we accept them.
I'll second.
Thank you so much, Mr. Banks.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the minutes. I'll call the vote. Shane Banks.
Aye.
Ralph Carson.
Aye.
Philip Jefferson.
Aye.
Jihan Hodges.
Aye.
Ben Mills.
Aye.
Michael Boyland.
Aye.
6 ayes. The minutes are approved.
Thank you so much. We've approved our meeting minutes. Our first item on the agenda this evening is CZMP 24005.
Good evening, Chairman Jefferson and members of the commission and public. It's good to see everyone this evening. I am Erin Joseph, and I will present the background information and presentation on this rezoning request. As you all recall, this case was continued from our September 8th meeting to allow the applicant to answer and address some questions from concerns stemming from that September meeting. So I'll give a high-level overview, background of the presentation, and the applicant is also here this evening, and they have prepared a presentation as well. Again, this is Arden subdivision. It's located generally at the northeast corner of 1010 Road and Old Stage Road within the town's extraterritorial jurisdiction. The applicant is requesting a Tier 2 conditional rezoning of 54.4 acres from residential agricultural to residential 4 conditional for the development of 136 single-family detached units. They have narrowed the potential uses to 1 out of 14, only single-family detached. They also have conditioned the dimensional lot standards to 53 foot wide by 120 in length in lot dimension minimum, and a side interior minimum of 6 feet, and a side corner setback at 10 feet. They have proffered conditions that establish specific guidelines for site design, architectural standards, and open space. You do have their conditions, the conditions within your packet, but I do want to draw your attention to what has changed since September's meeting. The applicant has proffered 3 additional conditions. The first is to address the stormwater control mechanism. They are now proposing to design for a 100-year storm event. The applicant has also proffered a condition that commits to green infrastructure, a minimum of 60 linear feet of green infrastructure to address green street solution design. They're also proffering a condition that would allow the vegetative aquatic shelf of the detention basin to be native species only. You have the proposed master plan, and I'll draw your attention to key areas of the plan. You have one main access from 1010 Road. You also have a one-way access from the adjacent Whitecroft subdivision from Hirsch Drive, and also an access from the Eagle Ridge subdivision at Kanakis and Seastone Street. They are proposing a main amenity area with playground, pickleball courts, and other amenities. 6-foot minimum paved trail throughout the site. And 1 stormwater control measure. With a comprehensive plan, just to identify, this site is not within an activity center. It's categorized as a neighborhood character typology, and the development intensity is level 2, area to strengthen. Overall, with staff's review, with consistency with the comprehensive land use plan, this proposed development has strengths, but greater home options and improved access management for the corridor could improve consistency. The land use and community character consistency has shifted due to the commitment of the Green Street solution and the green infrastructure. So staff has prepared a draft consistency statement based upon the consistency analysis. You do have in your staff report other options should you choose to deliberate and go and recommend another option that's at your decision. But you have on the screen the highlighted option from staff's consistency review, and also a draft motion. But again, you have several options for motions in your packet that reflects whichever way you may determine best fit for this particular case. And your next steps this evening would be to determine findings of plan consistency and to make a recommendation to council whether to recommend denial or approval. And town council will take up the matter again and determine findings of reasonableness with a decision to approve or deny. And I will pass the microphone to the applicant if there are no questions for our staff at this time.
Do you have any questions for staff? To hear from the applicant. Okay, we will hear from our applicant. Thank you so much. Please state your name and your address and affiliation for our record.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Hunter Winstead, Morningstar Law Group, representing Mungo Homes. In this plan that I'm very excited for the town of Gardner. Address of our firm is 434 Fayetteville Street, Suite 2200. Raleigh, North Carolina, 27601. With me tonight is our team from McAdams, who the commission met last month. I've got Miss Sarah Van Every, who's our case planner, Mr. Nick Williamson, who is our site civil engineer, Daniel Wiebke with stormwater at McAdams, and for transportation, we have Mr. Tyler Blaine from Exalt Engineering. There was a very fruitful discussion last month, as I'm sure the commissioners remember, a 2-hour meeting that left us with some homework. We have completed that homework, and I've separated it out into really 3 main tasks that we saw, and it's my belief that we've completed it in such a way to merit this commission's recommendation of approval tonight. And so what I'll do is just briefly walk through the 3 main points that we have completed on this homework assignment. The 3 conditions that Aaron mentioned. First, with respect to stormwater, we've incorporated a new condition that incorporates that 100-year storm. What you see on the screen is a lawyer's mistake to put retention in there. It is just detention, and our stormwater representative can address that if the commission has question. But again, our condition, and we can look at the language if we need to, is for 100-year storm detention. Second, the Green Street, as Aaron mentioned, we've incorporated a condition to require a minimum of 60 linear feet of that Green Street infrastructure within the development. And we've got a slide to just show a few pictures of what that looks like, the Green Street infrastructure. And then third and finally, there was questions from the commission last month about the sewer capacity. And we did some research there, and the study has been approved by the city of Raleigh. So just to provide the update to the commission there. Folks, that's the homework that we've done. Happy to address any questions. For the more technical questions, I'll send it to our McAdams team and Exalt team. But again, happy to address any general questions that the commissioners may have.
I have one.
Yes.
At least in the minutes from the last meeting, and as I best recall, one of the major concerns was lack of progress on the development agreement with the town regarding frontage and road improvement along 1010. I didn't see that listed in your 3 issues. Can you address that?
Yeah, happy, and thank you for bringing that up. So we have submitted a draft development agreement to the town attorney. We've gotten comments back that are very minor, non-substantive comments that we are largely okay with. And I can ask Ms. Jones to address maybe the status if she deems appropriate, but we're essentially right there at the end of having that agreement put together.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions for staff or for the applicant at this time based on the items that they presented?
I have one other comment that came up last month. One of the concerns was you only show one egress point on 1010 Road, and that still appears to be the case, so there's no consideration for putting in a second point.
Do you mean, and it might be hard to see the pointer, but the property owners here, our client Mungo has tried significantly to work out a way that we can make something work at this stage of the application. And we just haven't been able to come up with an agreement with the owners of that property. And so what we've done here is stub, and I want to make sure I'm addressing your question right, is this stub here that goes in the direction of 1010 for future development here. I know it's hard to see the pointer.
Yeah,
Is that the area you're talking about?
I can't see from here.
Yeah, I know it's tough to see.
I can't even see the pointer.
But it's essentially the stub that goes out in the direction of 1010. That's all we can do at this time is stub out for future development.
Is there a reason? One of the concerns I have is the irregular boundaries on the south side of this project. It's going to make it impossible for future infill or to add a street in here. Is there some reason that they couldn't square off those properties? And I recall that a lot of the homeowners there are somewhat related, but is there a reason they couldn't square that off instead of leaving something that is really going to prohibit development in the future?
You mean on the
south side?
the eastern bound, the direction of 1010?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that's just how the ownership shakes out with his family, there's a large family that's owned 1,000 different ways. And I believe that's just the boundary that we were able to make work.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Banks?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it should go to the developer or the town, but are there any updates on the potential for a traffic signal at Seastone Street and Old Stage Road?
I'll defer to the town. Or unless. I'll let Aaron address it first.
David, did you? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. As track engineer. Okay, yeah, sure. I'll pivot to you all. Let the expert.
Hey, good evening. I'll introduce myself again. My name is Tyler Blank with Exalt Engineering, located at 203 West Millbrook Road, Suite 200 in Raleigh, North Carolina. In regards to the signal at Seastone Street and Old Stage Road, that was a recommended improvement from our TIA that we developed. That signal that's going in there, we were informed by NCDOT that they are in the process of installing that signal, and it should be complete by the end of this year.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Karsten, if I could just go back to your question briefly on the boundary. So the kind of jagged boundary you see follows the parcels as they are. I just wanted to flesh that out. And one of the reasons that we can't bring it out to be consistent is because there's family buried in some of these areas. And so the current boundary is just to respect where those folks are buried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a document that perhaps designates where those sacred areas are in this site plan that you've shared with
Sarah,
us?
do we have that?
Good evening. Sarah Van Every, McAdams, 621 Hillsborough Street, Raleigh, 27603. So it is, as I understand, cremation remains, right, that have been buried on site. So I believe there we go. Okay, yeah. It's hard to see. It is hard to see. Okay. So I believe they're sort of, wait, is it around over in here or was it back in here? I know it's not where our road started. Between the pond and the stone. Between the pond, okay, thank you. So sort of over in this area.
I'm just following along
Thank
just
you.
so that they can
No,
see it on their screen. So.
I was noticing that mouse pointer earlier. It's very, very handy. So yeah, sort of in this general area.
Has that been surveyed and in some physical location? And the reason I ask that is because with any potential agreement to connect this development to 1010 to give us the street frontage we need to meet our guidelines, there are areas where you won't be able to connect. Am I to assume because of burial areas that you can't move through?
So the current roadway design doesn't impact that area, right? So and what I mean also by the current, also then how that is set up for the future roadway design, right? So this right here is would be conceptually end of roadway terminus and would then continue on as future right-of-way all the way south to 1010 Road for future development. So there's not any thought that this roadway here, as generally depicted, would shift significantly, that it would be in that area that we're discussing. So right now, the sellers would like to remain, and have that area not only remain here on site, but also then have that special sacred property to their family still be available to their family. So it's set up so that it's not impacted by current or future roadway design.
As it should be, and there should be, a really good buffer considering where there may be other potential locations. So, my main concern at the moment is not having enough street frontage for this development on 1010 Road. And without some type of change that shows that to our layout, it's hard I can't speak for the rest of the commission, but I can only speak for me. It's hard for me to understand how this might or would or is going to actually provide that connection that meets our standards. And so that's really hard. So it sounds like we're in a process to set up an agreement, but I don't know what that looks like. Is there a time frame that this would occur where you would connect to 1010 and have another access point that would then increase our street frontage for this property and development?
And I want to make sure I understand your question, Mr. Jefferson. Are you referring to the widening of 1010 or only the connection? So not the development agreement.
I'm referring to the connection to 1010. 'Cause right
I see,
now,
just the
we
connection.
really only have one entry point, which is
To 1010,
been
right.
our concern to 1010. Did I say Old Stage?
No, you said 1010. No, yeah. One connection to 1010, one connection to Seaside, and then one ingress from the street up on Hearst. But that's right. Currently, there's one connection to 1010, and no, there's no agreement right now as to how that street is going to connect to 1010. It's just a stub for future development. The development agreement is for the widening of 1010, the improvements.
That's what the development agreement is.
That's
for
right.
The widening, but
That's
not
right.
for
Not for the connection. That's right.
Is there any additional land acquisition that's required for the widening along there from these property owners, or is this all within the right of way?
I believe it'll be there's easement required that's contemplated in the development agreement. Ms. Jones, correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's my understanding.
Is the requirement to dedicate the right-of-way town's requirement, or y'all are just proposing that?
Sorry, what?
Is it a town requirement making the right-of-way dedication, or is that something y'all are just giving?
It's just a proposed condition that's essentially fleshed out in the development agreement.
Okay. I know we talked about last time traffic was the main issue. Not much has changed in terms of traffic. Last meeting, I talked about we really need 2 westbound lanes instead of just, a crossed out lane going, east to westbound due to the traffic backing up, mainly going to the westbound. Eastbound, not an issue. Westbound, that's where all the traffic backs up at. And you would really need that to connect to the DOT's widening project they have that's getting ready to break ground. I don't see any changes of that, so I can't see much of an improvement, and that's still a big issue for us.
Yeah, Tyler, do you want to talk about the improvements that are part of the development agreement?
Yeah, so as part of the developer agreement, we have the eastbound and westbound turn lanes going into the development. And again, coming out of the development, we have the one egress on 1010 Road. And also kind of to touch on there only being one egress onto 1010 Road. The level of service during the AM peak hour at the 1010 egress there, during the AM peak hour is a C level of service. And during the PM peak hour, it's a D. And level of service D is considered acceptable per NC.DOT nationwide standards. And even if level of service D doesn't sound great, that's the standard. The threshold for it to become level of service from C to a D is 25 seconds in delay. So if it's less than 25 seconds delay, it's a C. Over 25, it becomes a D. And the delay that we had at the 1010, the site egress on a 1010 was 25.7 seconds. So really, it's only 0.7 seconds from becoming level of service C, if that puts any kind of better perspective there. We also have, connection onto Seastone Street, considering that another egress. With the signal being added there, that comes out to a level of service B during the AM peak hour and level of service C during the PM peak hour. So with all those egresses combined, there's definitely a lot of extra capacity to handle the traffic from this development, along with other traffic kind of coming through from other directions. For your question, again, per the developer agreement, we have the eastbound and westbound turn lanes going into the development. There's also the DOT project going on at Old Stage Road and 1010 Road that is adding the the eastbound right turn lane, northbound right turn lane, that helped improve, delay at that intersection as well. But in terms of, extending a westbound turn lane across back to Old Stage Road, we did not have that as a condition or recommendation as part of our TIA.
And I think that would help out more than just adding a crossed out lane that's going to be good maybe 20 years or 10 years from now when it gets built out, instead of having a gap now between two projects. I would even, be fine with half of the right-of-way dedication not shown and connected to the gap that's to the DOT project, and where your the community entrance is going to be, development entrance. So I'll just repeat that from the last meeting, and I'll let other people comment if they have anything to comment.
Mr. Jeff, I just wanted to make one more point on the future extension here to 1010. Our folks want to see that insight, that infill site right there developed just as much as the town does, and we're going to continue to push to make that happen. Obviously, my client recognizes that portion connecting to 1010 is going to be valuable for the folks, for the town, and for the folks that are living in the subdivision as well. We're going to continue to push to do that, but our understanding now is that the folks that live there have lived there for a long time. Again, their family's been cremated and spread there. They don't want to leave at this time. That's where we are, and so it's not to say that it's never going to be developed. It's in our interest. Our client wants to develop that, wants that portion to be developed and to connect to 1010. I just wanted to make that clear for the record, Mr. Jefferson.
Well, I think it would be a little bit different if that was an open, wooded site and
Right.
there were no existing homes
Right.
and there were no barriers. I don't think there should ever be a time where we push residents out of their
Sure.
living spaces
Right.
in order for development.
Right.
I can't align in something like that. And it's
Sure.
one thing if the existing owners want to relocate and sell that to be developed. But, I have kind of the word pushing towards development is very difficult for me to align. I can't align around that.
Sure, yeah, I understood. I just want to again reiterate that we meet the current UDO standards with our connection to 1010 and our connection to CSOT on that side. I just wanted to address your question since you raised it, Mr. Jefferson.
Mr. Treesberg, what is our criteria for street frontage for developments like this? What percentage of the development needs to be connected to a right of way? Like this one right of way access to 1010, this one entry point.
Yeah, so there's not a specific frontage length requirement. There are access requirements, which they are meeting.
I ask another follow-up question, and it might be, maybe you can answer it, it might be a question for Ms. Jones, but with the development agreement and having to get additional easement, is there agreements in place with the owners for that easement? Either they're donating it or compensation, but have those owners all agreed to, in principle, to have this easement in their property?
So the short answer is I don't believe we have formalized agreements with those owners currently, and Ms. Jones may be in a better position to walk through the terms, but I understand that the terms of development agreement allows our client to use commercially reasonable efforts to effectuate that. Is essentially step one of the development agreement. And again, I'll let Ms. Jones walk through if she feels necessary, but that's contemplated within development agreement at least.
So that roadway access is the agreement you're still working on,
Not the access, just the widening of 1010. Just the widening of 1010.
which means
For,
we have
yeah,
to.
for newly, yeah. The development agreement does not have anything to do with access.
Would you like me to jump in now?
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Terry Jones, Town Attorney.
I'll sit down, Ms. Jones.
We're working on the development agreement. Just want to explain a few things. So they have very little actual current frontage onto 1010. They would have to dedicate to improve that to the cross-section. Now, because some of these parcels have not yet been subdivided, the applicants are the property owners that have frontage. So in these situations, council is looking for that full dedication. However, my understanding is their agreements to purchase this is only the back or the off-road frontage portions of the property. So with development agreements in these situations, and this is a trend of council to want to, because the development is now occurring off the road behind existing houses, to get those road improvements if possible with the development. So the way the development agreement will be structured is that the developers of this project would have to seek to acquire that right-of-way so that they're able to construct the road improvements. If they are not, then the town would agree to use its power of eminent domain to make that happen. And then as a default, somewhat in some of these agreements, if that can't be effectuated, then the developer would pay some kind of fee in lieu for future road improvements along the frontage. Does that help?
I guess I have some heartburn that if they can't reach an agreement, that the town would then use eminent domain. It's like, we're gonna try our best to acquire it, but if not, the town's gonna come in and take part of their property for compensation, but I mean,
Right. So
It just
and
seems
the
like-
developer would pay all of those costs of the town so that it wouldn't be a burden on the taxpayer to do this. But
no, I'm just, nothing's solidified. Potential for eminent domain, having to take people's land because they can't come to an agreement. It just sounds like this thing is still not gelled yet to where it really needs to be,
right.
in my opinion.
And that may be a reason why development agreements like this have to go through a separate public hearing process before council can approve that and enter into this contractual arrangement.
Yeah, Mr. Carson, I kind of align with that. I have huge issues with us, removing property owners from land that they have ownership of.
So just to be clear, these property owners, if this were not being subdivided off, they would be required to dedicate that road frontage to the town as part of the development project.
So it's not an option, is what you're saying.
Right. That's a typical requirement on any development. Whatever frontage you have, if the road is not to its ultimate cross section, David may have to help me with all the correct language on this. But if it's not, then they at least have to dedicate that right of way as part of the subdivision site plan process. So this is a little bit there was a project on Creech Road where those properties had already been subdivided prior to the development of the portions in the rear being developed.
Right.
But again, it was similar to that where council was concerned about acquiring the road frontage. A different arrangement was made in that instance. But it is an ongoing theme of council to look to make or to put the burden of road improvements on the developers whenever possible, and to get that ultimate cross-section available for the construction to happen. Again, it would be better to improve all of this at one time, all of this frontage at one time, than piecemeal as these other properties might develop in the future.
Right. And that we just don't know.
I have a question for staff. What is the plan down the road for widening 1010? Is it going to be 4 lanes? Is it going to be divided 4 lanes? Or 4 lanes with a turning center lane? So does this impact that future plan? Are they getting enough right of way now on that side of the property? Or are they going to have to take more later on when they widen this road out again?
So that widening is currently already part of both our local plans and Campo's Metropolitan Transportation Plan for that 4-lane plus facility. So at this point, when the subdivision rules would kick in for that to be dedicated, it would be the full cross section. So, and this being one side of the road, it would be half of that. So typically that's going to be 100 feet. It might be 110 in some cases. So there's probably 60 feet out there now if it's actually been dedicated. Some of these parcels may still go to the center line of the roadway. So in that case, it could be an actual dedication of anywhere from additional 20 to the full 50 feet.
But the south side still has to dedicate to 1010,
Correct.
where the houses are right on the road.
Right.
Issue. And there's no timeline on to widen 1010, right? There's no funding. It's probably 15 years out from now.
Yeah, I mean it's in the MTP. I need to pull it up and see. It's probably either in the 2045 horizon year. So yeah, there's pieces of it that are closer. They're doing some minor widenings a little closer to 401, but I think the full length of 1010 from 401 back to Benson is out there still, probably 15 years.
And this agreement with the owners, what is the time frame on actually having an agreement for that right of way? Do we know? Finalized. That still has to go to.
If I may, excuse me, I just want to come in and kind of clarify one thing in the hopes that that I'm helping bridge what I see might be a gap. So, sort of what we're sort of referring to is, for lack of a better term, sort of this infill piece. Looks like one piece that exists between 1010 Road and this site. So this is 5-ish, I think, property owners that are existing currently. So some will say, if 5 is the correct number, 4 out of 5 of these property owners are selling off a portion of their existing property. So in regards to the timing of when they want to, so they want to stay, but they also they don't need to be able to maintain that much of their land. So this is an opportunity for them to still stay where they've lived and where they've grown up as they age out and not be, right? So they're making this choice to stay, and then we'll leave when they find that time to be right. So no one's just wanted to clarify that we're not forcing anyone out, but we too would like to see this all come in as one, to be more cohesive. So we hope that we can continue those conversations so that when these folks are ready, we can be there to pick up and continue this in a very cohesive format. So just wanted to hope that clarify that piece, that there was no pushing.
That part we understand.
Okay.
It's the connection to 1010 and access points to 1010 that I think we have a lot of problems, concerns with, because we don't know when that would be. Does that
Correct.
make sense?
Correct. Correct. That would be when these folks here are ready. Right.
And there's still some agreements with the right of way at the access points to be finalized that we don't have in writing at the current moment, right?
Would just the access point would just be the one onto 1010 Road where the
Right.
existing property is. The others would be determined at the time of future development. So you would see this again. So essentially, right, you would say all this comes back, it would have to come back for a rezoning. You'd see this, you'd see those access points at that time. And they would be based on where those stubs are and where those plans are in the development review process and where they've been vetted with staff and meeting all of the UDO requirements. So staff would guide us on where those need to be as well.
And that part, I think we understand that as well, but it's the current access point that we don't have an agreement with yet, right?
Here? Yes,
You do have,
We have that.
yes.
you have that access.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the.
I know I was misunderstanding. Yes. We have the access on the top of the screen to 1010. We have sufficient access currently to 1010. It's the second access.
Yeah, for that one street, you have that.
That's right.
current
For that, yes.
access.
To the
Not
entire site,
anymore.
we have access
Not
to
the other.
1010.
Right.
It's the second one that you see stubbed on the bottom, kind of middle of the
You do
screen.
not have an agreement
Yes,
with
but just to be clear, we have sufficient access as it stands under the UDO requirements to 1010.
It's just that traffic backs up all the way there.
It backs
So-
up. It really does back up.
Can I ask a question for staff? What's staff's opinion on two westbound lanes connecting to the DOT project, so traffic doesn't back up as much going westbound and is able to flow out, so they can actually turn into their, the road into the development? I'm just, I think that's a sticking point for me right now. It's great to have all that right-of-way dedication, but it's going to stay like that for years, and there's something that could be done now to alleviate the traffic going through there. So I'm just curious, town staff's opinion on that when they were, working with the developer to get a MOU or development agreement for that portion, or if that's even an option, if you could, if there's interest on both sides looking at that now.
So you're talking about a second westbound lane from the DOT project up to the subdivision's entrance? Is that what the
Yeah,
question is?
pretty
Okay.
much, and just, for now, the right-of-way gets dedicated, except you shift the striping over, maybe an offset, so I don't know if DOT would be fine with that.
Right. Yeah, that'd be a conversation that we'd have to have with them. You're realistically probably not going to get that second lane in there without the right-of-way dedication.
Yeah, which I think we're fine with right-of-way, just you'd be restriping and shifting stuff over.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of having a striped out lane.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a conversation we could have with DOT on how to do it, but the taper coming from that into the second lane would be probably be the biggest issue with them. And then even then I think you're going to run into issues with right away if you're trying to put in the sidewalk and stuff.
Yeah, I think there'd be
curb and
some
gutter
more
goes on.
dedication between, going westbound, that gap area right at the school on either side.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about 150 feet, maybe. I can't remember. I measured it last meeting.
Yeah, I think the right of way is going to be the trickiest thing in this area because some of the right of way you're going to get as part of the subdivision, but then there are other parcels along here that will not get subdivided, so you will not have the right of way from those, which is where the developer's agreement theoretically comes in. Eminent domain if they can't acquire it.
I'd just like to clarify, so are you saying eastbound coming from Old Stage Road to the development, or do you mean eastbound going towards?
Yeah,
Old Stage
sorry
Road?
about that. I
Okay.
got the direction. Yeah,
Yeah,
eastbound.
it's kind of flipped around. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to confirm that. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
eastbound.
Mr. Bowman.
I will admit that my head is spinning right now, a little bit. The applicant says that a development agreement is close. Am I correct?
Yes, and thank you for I wanted to jump back in because I think Mr. Jefferson had a question about it. The development agreement must be finalized before we go to council. To get the status of the development agreement between the town and the applicant must be finalized before council.
And the town attorney's office agrees that it's close?
Yes, I'm not going to speak for Ms. Jones, but I think so.
Yeah, I've sent comments to developer's attorney. We haven't finalized that draft. I would agree it's close with respect to if you consider all of this that's in front of this subdivision. But if we're now talking about other parcels that we might need right away from, that's they're not reflected in that. So if the recommendation would be that there needs to be even more off-site dedication for road improvements, that would have to get added in before we go to a public hearing, if that would be Planning Commission's recommendation.
So it sounds to me like the development agreement that comes forward will have some ifs in it in terms of what the property owners along 1010 will do or want to do. Some ifs or if so thens.
Probably the latter. The developer would be responsible for trying to acquire the right-of-way so that they can construct the road improvements as required. Now, again, that's one half of the right-of-way. It's not the other side of the road. And then if they are not able to voluntarily acquire that, come to a negotiated price with those property owners, then the town could exercise its ability to do eminent domain to acquire that right-of-way so that the road improvements could be done, or could accept a fee in lieu.
Okay.
However, we'd prefer to get the right-of-way, earlier than later in the process. And then not knowing the timing of some improvements, a fee in lieu sometimes doesn't cover all the costs in the future.
Okay. Thank you. I was adrift there for a minute.
So if they did a fee in lieu of, and they're looking at a possible time frame of 2045 to widen this road, land values are going to go up substantially. So if more dedicated easement or right-of-way was required, it's going to cost the town at that point substantially more money if they did the fee in lieu of. So it's they got it. If I understand this correctly, so they're going to go to the homeowners, the property owners, say, we'd like to buy your land. And two of them say no. And then if it doesn't go any further, then it has to go to eminent domain or fee in lieu of, which could cost the town a lot more money 20 years down the road. So I don't like anything that has the potential to have eminent domain taking land away from property owners. I just don't think this is fully baked yet. That's my 2 cents. Now I'm looking at the traffic study and trying to determine what the lane configuration is of Street B where it meets 1010. Is that going to be a right turn in and a left, or is it going to be a 3-lane coming in and out? So you're going to have a right turn, a left turn, and then a turn coming in? Because that looks fairly narrow, but if I'm reading the traffic study right, it appears it might have just 2 lanes.
Yeah, so along 1010 we'll have the both turn lanes from east and west coming into the development, and the egress lane will be 1 lane where you can turn left or right, and then 1 entrance lane. So it'll be 2 lanes total, 1 coming out, 1 coming in.
So if somebody wanted to turn left, they could potentially hold the traffic hostage until traffic clears on 1010.
They could, but from our traffic study, we modeled that intersection with the full build out in place, and during the AM peak hour, it was level of service C, which is beyond acceptable. During the PM peak hour, again, busiest hour of the whole day, PM peak hour, it was level of service D, and it was only 0.7 seconds away from being level of service C. So
I get
still
that.
acceptable per NCDOT standards.
I understand that. The heartburn that I have is the traffic study. You're adding 1,340 trips. And your study says that you're going to have 11-foot difference at one time of the day, and on 1010, 13 feet. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense. I just, you've got 1 lane coming out. So whether you're turning left or you're turning right, and you're adding 1,340 trips and a 13-foot additional stack, and you're saying you're off by 0.7. If that's what the computer says, but I don't believe the computer, because common sense says you're going to have traffic back up a lot more than that to try and get out of that subdivision with 1 point of egress.
Yeah. I can touch on, so this slide here kind of talks on that, the trip generation from this development.
Yep.
It does show the 1,340 trips Again, that's the entire daily amount of trips. So if you look at the AM and PM peak hours, that's 99 total trips during the AM peak hour and 133 total trips during the PM peak hour. We then kind of drop a distribution percentages for all possible, directions vehicles could go from this development, and those are based on existing traveling directions from existing traffic counts and traffic movements. So in our distribution, kind of start with Old Stage Road. We distribute 37% of the development traffic to be going north on Old Stage Road. So of that 37% of the AM peak hour, which is 99 trips, that equates to 36 trips in the AM peak hour, which kind of equates to one vehicle every 40 seconds. During the PM peak hour, that's 49 trips, one vehicle every minute and 13 seconds. If you look at 1010 Road that we were discussing, we distributed 38% of vehicles going west on 1010 Road. That equates to 38 trips during the AM peak hour and 51 trips during the PM peak hour. So the 1340, it does look like a scary number, but that, again, is throughout the entire course of the whole day, where, again, then we take that and we model the AM and PM peak hours, which are the two busiest hours of the day. And this kind of breaks it down to how much traffic that really is creating during those AM and PM peak hours.
So how did you come up with the percentages for the site traffic assignment? Because it looks like you basically split it a third, a third, a third. A little bit going Whitecroft. It almost appears that the traffic assignment was assigned to come up with the lower numbers. And I don't see 30% of the traffic exit from this project exiting on Seastone. That's a high number going through Seastone and going down through that subdivision. I think your Seastone is going to be much less. I think your 1010 Road is going to be much higher. That's my opinion, and I'll just leave it at that.
The way we develop these numbers is by looking at existing traffic counts. So before we even start our study, we get existing traffic counts at all of our study intersections. So in this case, it's all the study intersections listed there. We look at the movements during the AM peak hour and PM peak hour, which direction they're going. We take those trips from each direction, and that's how we determine our distribution percentages based on existing traffic counts that we collected prior to performing the study.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're determining based on a project that's not developed, and you're going to assign percentages of which exit they're going to use.
Yes.
Logic says you're going to take the easiest route out, which would be the route to 1010.
I mean, so for going up Old Stage Road, based on existing traffic in that area, 38% of the traffic counts are going north up Old Stage Road. And I mean, based on travel times and routes available, we assumed it's much faster to just cut right onto Seastone Street that our development connects to. You can take Seastone Street right out. There's going to be a signal at Seastone Street as well that provides, ample capacity versus taking the proposed site driver all the way down to 1010, having to turn left, wait at the signal at Old Stage and 1010, turn left there, and then go north on Old Stage. So it kind of provides an extra cut through traffic piece onto Seastone Street is what we came up with in our TIA based on existing traffic counts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions or for applicant, for staff? Seeing none. In order for us to make some decision or have further discussion, do we have any motion to?
Do we need to have other people speak for?
Oh, yeah, we do. Do we? Thank you, Mr. Carson. There's been so much going on this one. Do we have anyone in our audience that would like to speak in favor or against the proposal? Okay, so seeing none. Okay, now, do we have a motion from the commission for us to make some decision about this case?
I'll make the motion. See where it goes. I'm gonna find this project as consistent, but I'm gonna recommend denial. I move the planning commission accept the consistency statement drafted herein as our own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request of the town's adopted land use plans, but recommend denial of case CZMP 24005 to the town council because of inconsistent boundaries which may limit future development to the south. The traffic that is going to be added to 1010 Road that's not fully developed out yet. And no, I think traffic is probably the biggest thing, and the one entranceway off of 1010. So for those three reasons, I recommend denial of this project.
So just to clarify, Mr. Carson, you are,
Finding it's consistent, but recommend denial.
okay, finding that the consistency statement is not consistent.
Well, it's consistent with the requirements of the town, and it meets the bare minimums, but I'm recommending denial because of the traffic and the one entrance off of 1010 and the inconsistent boundaries. And also, I guess I'll add to that, the lack of formal agreements for the development agreements not being accepted by the homeowners yet. So for those four reasons.
Mr. Jefferson, I'm going to clarify as well. So, Mr. Carson, you're going for draft motion number 3.
Yes.
Which is to find it consistent and recommend denial. Your statement about why you're choosing that is because of the fourth option, parts of. Your reason must be based within these 5 choices here. So if you can, you're not wrong in stating what you're saying and your belief on this project, but you're giving specifics beyond transportation infrastructure that would be suitable and adequate for the proposed uses is not available. So the more formal draft motion would refer to transportation infrastructure wholly that would be suitable and adequate for the proposed use.
That'd be under draft motion 4.
Draft motion 4 is inconsistent and recommend denial. So
The fourth.
Oh, okay, sorry.
oh, I'm
I was-
sorry. Yes,
sorry.
the 4 boxes. that
Yeah,
are,
so I was, right, okay, so we're still
Yeah.
under draft motion 3 under the, due to the transportation infrastructure.
So we can. That will be your motion. You move that the planning commission accept the consistency statement drafted herein as your own written recommendation regarding the consistency of the request with the town's adopted land use plans, but recommend denial of case CZMP 25005 to the town council because transportation infrastructure is not suitable and adequate for the proposed uses
Correct.
and is not available. Is that your?
Yes.
That's your motion.
That kind of covers all the topics that I had noted, I guess.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
No, that's fair. That's why we give you 4 motions as well, and you have leeway in how you choose to come to those motions.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to find consistent and recommend denial. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Mr. Boylan has seconded that. Is there any other discussion before we? There is none. I believe we are ready to.
Sure. So the motion on the floor is to find to find it consistent and recommend denial. based upon transportation infrastructure is not suitable and adequate. So that's the motion that we're voting on. I'll call the vote. Mr. Banks,
Aye. Excuse me, aye.
Mr. Carson,
Aye.
Mr. Jefferson,
Aye.
Ms. Hodges,
Aye.
Mr. Mills,
Aye.
Mr. Voiland.
Aye.
That's 6 ayes. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. We have approved our motion for this case. We now move into our reports from the planning director and planning commission.
Yes, real briefly, activity on different cases and topics since your last meeting of September 8th. At the regular meeting of September 16th, ZTA 24001, I think I'd given you a little bit of a heads up about that text amendment package, which is focusing on implementing portions of the comprehensive plan related to residential development. That was continued. We needed a little more extra time to work on graphics, and we are recommending that it be continued again to allow council members a little more time to get familiar with the package, because it is a fairly in-depth, broad package. So my best guess at this point is that it may come to you in December. Outside chance that maybe that gets pushed to January, but more than likely one of those 2 months that will be showing up for y'all. Also at that meeting, CZ 25001, which was the conditional zone tier 1 for the Project Cougar site out there on Rayner Road, that was approved. Then at the September 30th work session, there was a presentation. I think I mentioned this last time that would be coming up, that we had a presentation from Go Raleigh on the bus rapid transit. So if you didn't get a chance to see that, I believe that was first on the agenda that day. So again, the September 30th work session, feel free to check that out. Then on October 7th, our new senior planner, Mr. Julian Griffey, presented the contract and scope of work for the transportation plan to the council. It was received positively, and so we do have it on the upcoming council agenda of the 21st for approval to direct the manager to go ahead and execute the contract. That will be on the consent agenda. So unless that gets pulled, there won't be any further discussion about it at that meeting. So looking to get that process moving forward. And then also on the 21st, we do have on the calendar a presentation from Duke Health. Duke Health will be speaking to the council about their property at the corner of Timber and 50. So I know you all have asked about that. So John gave me a heads up to let you know that there will be a presentation to the council that day. So if you're interested in hearing about that, please tune in. And then related to the transportation plan, just also kind of wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. We pretty well, I think, have settled with the consulting team as to how we're going to approach the involvement of, citizens and the various committees and the council. And at this point, we are anticipating, just so you are thinking about it, that there will be essentially a policy committee, which would be a committee of the whole again, kind of like what we did with the land use plan. So we will be moving in that direction for both the Planning Commission and the council to be wholly involved in those meetings. At this point, I think we're looking at 3-4 max of those. So not a huge commitment. We do have tentatively until next December is when we're kind of looking the end of the year next year for final plan adoption. But then we also will be having an advisory committee, which will be a little more overarching and inclusive, just to kind of, have a sounding board for the consultant to make sure that they're heading in the right direction with the plan. So for that committee, we do anticipate having appointees from various boards, and this would again move beyond just Planning Commission and just the Town Council. Could be other town commissions as well as members of the public. So do be thinking about that. We could have 2 or 3 folks from Planning Commission. So again, if you're interested in being a little more involved, again, probably 3 meetings, 4 at the max. So between the 2, shouldn't be too taxing, hopefully, but maybe a meeting every other month on average for those 2 committees. So just be thinking about that. We'll probably be asking for a little more definition in terms of appointees for that, maybe in December. The consultant will be doing, as I think I mentioned before, a lot of data crunching and data work to start, so that the committees can kind of have something to dig into when they start to meet. So it's kind of our impression that those committees will probably pick up more so after the holidays. So just be thinking about that between now and then if you're interested, and talk amongst yourselves. And that's all that I have.
Okay, that's actually really good to hear. That's both really important and necessary. I'm glad that we're getting our process started for the transportation plan. That's so very important, especially as our bus rapid transit comes through our corridor. Like, we're the ones that have to kind of think about that, so that's really great. I definitely would like to participate however I can. And Duke Health, that's the 21st. You said again, right?
Yes, 21st. And just a heads up, if you do need to get in touch with planning staff the rest of this week, just in case, about half of us will be out of the office at a conference this week. It's our annual planning conference this year. It's in Charlotte, and it's not just the North Carolina chapter, but also the South Carolina chapter. It's the first time ever that I'm aware of that we've done a joint conference. But we will have, like I say, at least half, if not a little more than half of us still here. But just be a little patient if it takes a little bit to get back to you or anyone else.
Okay, we like to see us being represented in the whole. So thank you for doing that work, representing Town of Garner.
Mr. Driesenberg, question. There was a news release, might have been today or Friday, about the November 4th Wake Med groundbreaking over across from, over Timber Drive. Is there any part of that needs to come before Planning Commission? I've seen some drafts of the layout, but is that, since they're doing groundbreaking?
Yeah, at this point, there is not, due to the some of the amendments that were passed. We did we did address the change there for hospitals and similar uses to exempt them from having to go through the special use permit process. Of course, that would have just gone to council. But as far as the zoning goes, there is not a need for a rezoning for that particular project. It's possible, though, that there could be other portions of that quadrant around the hospital site that could, depending on what kind of uses they're looking at. Okay. But most of that is, I think, zoned commercial mixed use. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other, anything else from commission? Mr. Vorlin?
A little off topic, shameless promotion. I'm a member of the Garner Police Department's volunteer team, the CAP team. And next Sunday, there's a fundraiser for that team at Lorraine's Coffee House. And Lorraine's Bluegrass Band will be playing as the opening act to my band. So if you are interested, tickets are sold at the door, and I have a few flyers here. It's all to raise money for the volunteer effort.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It's really important. We have to support our.
And that's the 26th.
The 19th.
The 19th.
Sunday.
This-
Sunday.
Okay.
4
I
to
was
s-
getting the
4 to
next
7.
Sunday. I'm like, is it the one that's coming or the next? The next. That's why I was asked.
Next
Okay.
Sunday, 4 to 7. Yeah.
The next upcoming Sunday. Gotcha.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Any other information from the commission that likes to be shared? Okay. Well, that being said, we will call our meeting
This
adjourned.
way.